Okay. Hello. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Thanks. Glad to get your attention. I'm Gwen Robinson, the president of the Foreign Correspondents Club and editor-at-large of the Nikkei Asian Review. And we're just starting now. I'll just introduce our guest and give a quick lineup of events over the next week or two. While certain people are moving into place here, there's still some empty spots of seats reserved. So hopefully we'll get things moving in about 5 minutes. I'd just like to say that obviously our guest tonight really doesn't need any introduction, and particularly to this audience, obviously you're here to see one person. But if you'll bear with me, I'd just like to say a very warm welcome to Kun Thanathorn and his team. We've got quite a few future-forward people here tonight, including MPs and his excellent assistants. And I just wanted to point out how I think important it is for the Foreign Correspondents Club to continue as a place for free speech, open debate, and a forum for all kinds of views here, which is, as we all know, increasingly under pressure. And we're very pleased that this is the third time that Kun Thanathorn has come back. We'd also like it to continue to be a forum for all kinds of views, and we're open to and intend to hopefully continue to invite people from across the political spectrum, including, I hope, a good program in 2020 to also engage MPs and other people from across the spectrum. And that just leads me very quickly to a few housekeeping announcements to remind you of what's coming up. Tomorrow night we have the new chairman of the Stock Exchange of Thailand coming to speak about the evolution of the Thai capital markets. I think this is a good moment to listen to what reforms have been made to the Thai stock market. And this is an event that is open to all, and the SET is actually inviting everyone for dinner and free drinks as well as the talk. If any of you are at all interested in the stock market or plans for Thailand's future in capital markets, please come. You only need to register online. On Wednesday night, we're very pleased to have the historian and prominent author Thanathorn Ju of Myanmar, who is launching his new book, The Hidden History of Burma, and that should be a very interesting talk. Next week we have, amongst other events, the International Commission for Jurists is launching their extremely interesting report on freedom of expression, particularly online expression in Asia, which contains a lot of information and is bringing in speakers from across the region, including Malaysian satirical cartoonist Zuna, as well as Matida, a former political prisoner and writer and activist in Myanmar, and several other people. So that should be a very good night on December the 11th. And then on December 12th, we are probably running a discussion panel pegged to the opening of the International Court's case against Myanmar in The Hague, where Aung San Suu Kyi, as you probably all know, is going to lead her defence team, which should be an interesting event. And we hope to have a hookup with some prominent spokesman for Rohingya and some experts here on the 12th. And then finally, on the 13th, we'll have the club Christmas dinner. So all are welcome. Sign up. It'll be a very good value event and feast. So on that note, I'd just say, please keep in mind the Foreign Correspondents Club next year for a variety of reasons, including events, and also one of the most inexpensive and convenient lunch spots in town. And we've just had a very honourable guest arrive, Kun Anand Panyarachun, and I will hand over now to Jonathan Head, who is going to introduce Kun Thanathorn.
Thank you very much, Gwen. I have to say this club has never been as energetic as it has with Gwen as president, and we're all very grateful to her for the enormous effort she's made for it over this year. And I would say that the political events we've been able to have this year have been highlights of the club's life. You know, Bangkok, Thailand's politics have reanimated after 5 years of military rule, and having someone of Kun Thanathorn's stature and energy at the club absolutely plays to what the role of this club is. We have always invited and extended an open invitation to members of the government too. We want everyone to come here. We want to be part of the conversation that Thailand needs about where it goes from here. And so this is very much in keeping with the club's tradition. We are very honoured to have Kun Anand Panyarachun here as well tonight, who is an old friend of the club and has been part of the conversation about Thailand's future going back longer than most of us can remember. Kun Thanathorn, if I could invite you to come up and take your place right now. Thank you. All politics needs new blood, and it needs personalities. It needs people who can excite the population, the citizens, the voters about politics and what it can do for them. God knows that's true of my own country, Britain, where an election is taking place at the moment where many people would regard the choices as invidious and not particularly attractive. So the arrival of Kun Thanathorn on the scene in Thailand caused waves, not just because he's young and telegenic, because he was a man who came in with a lot of ideas about what should change. And change is always, it's not always easy to carry out, but it's vital that it's always there on the agenda. Politics is always vested interests versus people who want to change and trying to maintain the balance between them. And there's no doubt from what we saw in the election back in March that Kun Thanathorn and the young candidates who ran for his party did excite particularly younger Thais, but not just them. There were many Thais of many generations who were looking for something new, who felt that the old parties weren't offering much, and that the military, in reforming itself, was probably going to be, in the form of Palam Pracharat, just more of the same. And so I think most people would argue that the arrival of this new young party was a very important new element in Thai politics and could contribute a great deal. What we've seen since an election that produced an impressive result for a party that hadn't existed for much longer than a year is immense amounts of legal pressure being put on Kun Thanathorn and on his party, and their role being a great deal more difficult than it might have been. But they still have a significant block of seats in Parliament. As a party, there's still a great deal they can offer in the debate about where Thailand goes from now. As all of you will have read in the news coverage, Kun Thanathorn was officially disqualified in a verdict by the Constitutional Court over an issue of shareholdings in a media company, which does inevitably pose some questions over what happens to his party now. I'm going to ask him now to speak about where he sees the party going. And once he's finished his address, he doesn't have a huge amount of time, but once he's done that, we will have plenty of time to take questions from you in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. ขอบคุณครับคุณโจนาธาน Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, happy to be here again. I was invited to speak this night about the recent political developments, the court cases. I wanted to talk about many things. I wanted to talk about all these cases against me, leadership of the party and the party itself. I wanted to talk about, my role as a budget commissioner, and the thing that we found when it comes to the transparency or the lack of transparency in the military budget. But I think since time is limited, I cannot talk about everything I wanted to. So I decided just to talk about one thing that is very crucial to the future of the Thai politics. In order to start talking about the future of the Thai politics, I wanted to take us back to the past. I will be sharing my view with you about the political developments which may or may not reflect all dimensions, but at least this view is cultivated from numerous conversations with players of all sides and of all ranks. 40 years ago, actually more than that, during 50 years ago, during the 1970s, Thailand was deeply divided. People killed each other, claiming to protect the value of Thainess. They killed each other because of hatred, spinning from government propagandas. Leaders of student unions, leaders of labor unions were assassinated, massacred during the month of October 1976, still haunted many till today. Those who were suppressed decided to take up arms, left cities, and joined the Communist Party of Thailand in the mountains. The fight between the Communist Party and the Thai state took decades, and lives were lost on both sides. When General Prem Tirasulanon took the prime ministership as the representative of the establishment, what he did was this. He launched a directive called the 66/23 directive. And this directive basically gives amnesty to people who involved with the Communist Party to leave the insurgent movement without penalties. This directive basically pulled people back, people who fought outside the parliamentary system, pulled them back in. Many people left their strongholds in the mountains and regained their normal lives. The country was again at peace. The 66/23 directive was launched on the belief that people who fought with the Communist Party of Thailand were not enemies of the state, but were the people who want to see better changes. Based on this understanding, people put down their guns and fought for changes in the parliamentary system. Many decades later, people lost their faith in the parliamentary systems. Over the last 12 years, some people believe that only military intervention can solve the political stalemate in this country. For some, parliament cannot bring about any changes, and therefore they turn to violence. For some, hope just lost. They stop believing in politics altogether. They stop caring about the future of our country. They stop caring about the future of our children, and they just want to survive the day. Now, let's look at the beginning of the Future Forward Party. The co-founders of this party and I, we started this journey because we still have hope. We are convinced that a transition to democracy is best done inside the parliamentary system. When we started this party, the country was, like in the 1970s, deeply polarized. By some measures, it was even more polarized than the 1970 Thailand. More than 100 people have been killed over the last 12 years of political conflict. 10,000 more wounded. No one has been held accountable for this. We want to make people believe again that democracy works. We want to give democracy a chance. That by working together, we could make our parliament works again. Make our parliament responding to the needs of the people. And that the transition to democracy can be done and best be done inside the parliamentary system. We founded this party on that belief. I would like to give you some examples of how our belief in democracy could change or could transform the country. Take the constitutional amendment and our call to end military conscription campaign as two examples. We organized our election campaign based on them. These two agendas were two of the most important policy platforms we have during the election campaign. Of course, the result of the election, we all know by now. We didn't win the majority. So we could argue that it's because of the special formula that the election commission used to calculate the proportional MPs. We couldn't form a ruling coalition. I didn't become prime minister. But yet we still campaign for these two issues. For the constitutional amendment, we ask the lower house to commission a special panel to study how best to amend the constitution for the benefits of the country. The house will vote for this issue next week, actually this week. If the house passes, this panel will be formed. A constitutional amendment commission will be formed, and our party will send our best people to join this panel so that a real study to amend the constitution can be realized. But if the proposal is rejected, we will continue our campaign. And as for the call to end the military conscription, we submitted a military enlistment bill to the House Speaker, Kun Chuanleekpai, 2 weeks ago. The bill is to be passed. If the bill is to be passed, it would require 251 votes from the House of 500 in 3 readings or in 3 steps of vote of approvals. We have only 80 seats in the parliament. So in order to have this bill passed, we have to gain support from other political parties. So this is not easy, but it's peaceful. If we fail, that means we haven't done enough to convince the people. We haven't done enough to convince the public. We haven't done enough to convince the leaders of other political parties. That means our best efforts wasn't good enough, and that we have to do it better. So we will continue to campaign, and we will continue to campaign harder. It would take years to deliver these changes. It would take decades to make our policy a reality. Democracy, ladies and gentlemen, is a slow process, but it's peaceful. There's debate there, there's conversation there, there's dialogue there, there's people participation there. And this is how democracy works. After 262 days since the founding of the party, we have altogether 28 cases now. Some of these are in the hands of the police. Some of these are at the office of the Attorney General. Some of these is under the control of the Constitutional Court. Some of these cases are with the Election Commission office. we can see it clearly that the attempt to stop us is real. We can see it clearly that the effort to dissolve our party is real, is tangible. And the ruling to dissolve our political party, according to some source, might be as early as mid of December, before the festive season arrives. Of course, I know that you want to hear about the detail of these cases, and of course I'm willing to answer all the questions about these cases if time allows. But I think it's better for us to take one step back and look at the bigger picture. If we look at the bigger picture today, I think these cases are irrelevant. What is relevant is this: the establishment seems determined not to allow peaceful transition to democracy to happen. They disqualified me, as Jonathan already mentioned 2 weeks ago. Last week, another example: the opposition win the vote to set up a special panel to study the effect of the Section 44, Prayut's instrument to absolute power that he used consistently from 2014 to July this year. But the government didn't accept the result of the vote, though it was clear that the opposition won the vote 234 against 230. They asked for a recount or revote, if you prefer. And this results in a walkout and consequently a stalemate for 2 consecutive days. The stalemate might continue to this week parliamentary session as well. And middle of this month, they might dissolve our party. They consistently use fake news and disinformation to discredit oppositions, branding us as traitors, branding us as anti-monarchy, installing hatred that divides the people of this country. So I think the single most relevant issue in Thai politics now is not about me, nor about our party, but it's about the future of the country. The establishment, instead of pulling people in, like what happened under the administration of General Premtita Sulanon in the 1980s under the 66/23 directive. Instead of doing that, they are pushing people out. Nobody knows what could happen when people lost faith in the parliament, when there is no hope left, when there is no possibility to win power peacefully. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The establishment, the junta, they seem certain that they could contain it, that they could control it. But many think otherwise. Many I talked to are not convinced. I think this is a very dangerous gamble. If we look at the world stage, if we look at Chile, the tipping point in Chile is the increase in the subway fare. We don't know what will be the tipping point here. What we do know is this: we do know that the tension is rising. This is tangible, this is known. We do know that the storm might be coming. This month, people in the fishing industry will organize a demonstration. Last month, a group of people called Assembly of the Poor, 500 of them were here in Bangkok for almost a month, shutting down one of the streets near the government house. in January, people already organized a campaign. They call it Run Against Dictatorship. They organize a protest in the form of running, and that will be on the 12th of January. So we do know that we are standing on the edge, and I think it's clear that it's not because of us. We want to participate in politics inside the parliamentary system, but we are not allowed to do. People are not allowed to do this. So we are being pushed outside, and I think that's why it's a very sensitive time. And just to make this plain, just to make this clear, it's not because of us, but it is because of the rigidity of the regime. So, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my talk briefly here, and I would like to open more time for questions from the floor. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Kun Thanathorn. The floor is open for questions. There should be a microphone somewhere there, and I think Tam is about to make sure it's visible. If possible, I'd like to prioritize working journalists who've got questions to ask to come forward first. And identify yourselves, please, when you do. Kun Thanathorn, if you don't mind, I'm going to exploit the privileged position I have here just to throw one obvious question, which I think many other people would have, is that given the power of the military and their position, some would say that prioritizing reform of the military, conscription, issues they care about, perhaps provoked them. I mean, could you not find a way to reassure the military and find other issues to start with first, rather than making it very clear that they were your target?
Well, this, you got to understand that the end of conscription is our main policy. Though we are not in the government, we are not a governing coalition, but it's basically our promise to the people. So we translate our election campaign to a bill and table that into the parliament. And like I said, we have only 80 seats. If the public are not convinced, how can this bill be passed? It can't. So it's up to us to campaign, and it's a debate. That's what we need now. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation. Here's the thing. You might think it is a strategical mistake to do this first, to confront the military first. We think otherwise. We think it's time for us to talk about what really matters. If we talk about, the small issues here, small issue there, I don't think we can, bring about change. For us, issue-based problems in Thailand cannot be solved if you don't talk about the structural problem. And that's what we are doing.
The military is clearly afraid of you. I mean, you would have seen the speech that General Apparat gave, where he had you up as a sort of reincarnation of the communist threat. I mean, you are dealing with an institution that sees you as very, very threatening.
Well, like I said, it's when talking about this, the conscription, you got to understand that this is about inequality as well. Rich people or people from the upper middle class, they have many channels to get away from the conscription. There's so many exemptions, but people from poor family, they have to spend 2 years. If they pick what we in Thailand call the red card, the black card and the red card, if you pick the red one, you are a recruit. If you pick the black one, you're free to go. So basically, imagine a poor family where a son at the age of 20, he's supposed to be an economic force of the family, and he has to spend 2 years inside the military training, and after that gain no skills, gain no further knowledge to to live outside with the outside world. So I think it's very important that we look at this issue not only as a reform of the military, but also as a dimension, one of the dimensions that creates the inequality in this society.
Thank you. Marwan, could you ask a question, please?
Yeah. Marwan Mark of the Nikkei Asian Review. Just two questions, Kun Thanathorn. If you look at your election and your vote bank, a number of young people who voted for you were sons and daughters of military generals. And I was wondering whether your party has attempted to reach out to those sons and daughters to find out why their parents are somewhat stubborn in going after you. That's my first question. And my second question is, you've painted a fairly bleak picture of what might unfold in Thailand next year. Given the events of 2009 and 2010, where it took a long time for protests to manifest into existential threat of the Thai state, how soon do you think this could manifest itself next year?
Thank you.
ขอบคุณครับ The first question, I really don't know how to answer that, but I believe that if we talk, you see, if we talk about the people of the new generation, say they are in the last year of the universities, they must be what, 23, 22 now. So they were born in the 1990, the year in which Thailand faced the 1997. Sorry. So in the year when Thailand faced the economic crisis, when they were old enough to remember, they have seen the first coup d'etat of the 2006, and then when they entered the teenagers years, they see these crackdowns, the Black Hawk crackdowns in 2010, right? And then when in 2014, when they entered the university, they see this second coup d'etat. So I think the people of this generation started to ask questions: what happened to my country? Over there 22, 23 years of lives, they've never seen a real democracy. So for some, they start asking questions, and thanks to technology, they can learn by themselves of what had happened over the last 12, 13 years. So I think that is that forms the basis of why they want to see change. Your second question, how long? I have no idea. People thought I can control, I have a button, and if I push this button, people will gather on the streets. I don't have this button. I cannot control them. What I tell you is this: the anger of the people is real. The anger of the people is tangible. If you want to know, walk the market with me. Any markets in Thailand, I mean not supermarkets in central department store, but the actual markets on the streets. You talk to the people there, and they will tell you how much they hate the regime. Every one of them, in any province. So I think it really depends. And if you look what happened over the last 2 months in the parliament, people people were it's just the frustration is not going down. It's every day it keeps accumulating. Every day it keeps rising. So that's why I'm saying if the regime, the military, the junta, they still don't let we work in the parliament as we should have our right to, then it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So I don't know. We'll see. I think 12th January can be a measure. 12th January is the first time people seriously organize a campaign against General Prayut. So the first gauge would be on the 12th of January.
Thanks. Michael, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, and I'll put 12th of January in my diary. Thank you very much for the heads up. I'm not running this time, thanks either. 2 questions. Last time when you came here, you talked about the need for Future Forward to become an institutional party. I agree with you. Institutional parties are some ways the way forward. UMNO in Malaysia is a particularly good, if limited, example of this. But you now seem to be saying it's all over for Future Forward. The question is, do you expect them to take you out, to abolish, do what they will with Future Forward in the next court rulings?
According to some source, they said that there might be the court verdict might come out in the middle of January to dissolve the party. I'm not convinced, but there is some saying, there's a rumor. So I really don't know if this is true or not. Maybe Kun Anand knows better. What I do know is this: we are not giving up. What I do know is this: we are not giving up. We will continue to build this party, a mass party, and we will continue to build this party, an institution. We know that 500 something days from the beginning of the journey, we are far from perfect. We made so many mistakes strategically and operationally. We made so many mistakes. We were sometimes too bold, sometimes too naive in some matters. But I think it's normal in a newly formed party with the leaders of the party. None of us have political backgrounds before, so I think it's normal to make mistake, and we are learning from our mistakes. Actually, this is December, and we are very busy right now because we are making our business plan for the 2020, but actually party plan, what we want to do and how we want to do it for the year 2020. And the theme is very simple: back to basics, back to building the party we want it to be. We were too busy during 2019, during the most part of this year, because we were new to the parliament. None of the 80 MPs of our party been there before. None of us was an MP before. So we need to learn a lot of things. We need to spend time on these court cases. So we didn't spend enough resources. We didn't spend enough time to the building of the party. Next year will be different. If we survive, if we still survive, next year we will, spend more time, allocate more resources to the building of the party.
Thank you very much.
You've said building of the party. Will that be called Future Forward, or are you going to get caught in a trap whereby you create a party, it's knocked down, and you rebrand it? This is one way how the Thai establishment of you have referred to it. keeps reform off the agenda. By constantly forcing parties like yourselves, which are reformist, on the back foot all the time.
Yeah, I know. It will be harder. It will be harder if our party get dissolved and we have to set up a new party and start all over again. It will be much harder, but we are not giving up. We look at our party as a journey rather than, one election, next election. No, we don't see it that way. We think it's more like a continuing journey. So whatever it takes.
Thanks. Pia.
Hi, thanks. I'm Pia from the Straits Times. I have two questions, mainly involve the future forward. And now with the looming, so to say, case to dissolve the party altogether. So first of all, you emphasize today that your priority is to fight in the parliament. So in the case of party dissolution, does the party itself has any plan to join the streets movements that you mentioned that would probably start by January? This is the first question. And the second question is, of course, if the party is dissolved, the MPs in the Future Forward Party can still look for new parties as the new homes in the parliament. So can you shed us a light in terms of solidarity within the party? Are you confident that you can that the party itself would manage to find a new home in time, in 90 days? Thank you.
Thank you. First, let's talk about the protest, the demonstration in January. Let me put it this way. It's autonomous. It's been organized in the it started in the social media. It's been organized on an electronic platform. So I think this time it will be special. We really don't know how many people will buy this campaign. We really don't know how many people will join. But let me make it clear, we are not behind it. It's autonomous. It's sprung from the anger of the people. So let's see what's gonna happen. The second is our solidarity of our MPs. Again, I am convinced. First of all, I am convinced that some if this happens, some 60 at least some 60 MPs from 80 MPs will relocate to a new home altogether. I am convinced that the majority of our MPs will stick together. But of course, I have no proof, and people might decide otherwise. But as of now, I believe that the majority of the MPs or Future Forward Party will go together. They will stick together.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can I have the next question, please?
Hugo Restall, freelance journalist. One of the issues that General Apparat raised in his notorious speech was your visit to Hong Kong and the picture with Joshua Wong. Do you feel some solidarity with the protesters in Hong Kong, and do you see that kind of movement as one of the dangers facing Thailand today? Thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, we do not support violence, whether it's from the state of police, from the police side, or from the demonstrator side. We are not in the support of using violence. Second, we support the call for, universal suffrage as stipulated in the basic law.
Is that it? You got anything else to say about Hong Kong?
Well, like I said, we support the call for universal suffrage as stipulated in the basic law.
My understanding was that you just took a selfie with Joshua Wong. The impression we got from General Apparat was that you two were kind of plotting together.
Well, like I said, the incident happened that night was that I was invited to speak in one of the economist forums, you know, and there was a debate that night between I couldn't recall his family name, but his name is Chon, and the other guy was Joshua Wong. So both of them on the stage together and debated about the future of Hong Kong. And then when they came down from the stage, both of them approached me and asked to take a picture of me. Both of them posted their pictures of me on their social media platforms, both of them. When I came back to Thailand, okay, well, of course, Chon is pro-Beijing, you know, and you know the position of Joshua. So basically, I took the picture of both of them. When I came back to Bangkok, only the picture of Joshua Wong was used against me. So, like I said, I do support the universal suffrage, the call for universal suffrage for Hong Kong. I think that should be the basis of any society anywhere in the world.
Dominic.
Dominic Fulder, Nikkei Asian Review. Thailand, particularly Bangkok, has the very bad experience of street demonstrations and street violence, and it's gone both ways in the past. When people approach you and suggest that there may be demonstrations and that they may turn unpleasant, do you counsel them against going in that direction? Something that some people would see as a trap because it gives people a reason to react forcefully against you and the people on the streets. Thank you.
We have to reclaim the right to assemble. I think that should be the basis. That should be the basis. You see, here's the thing. This time, I believe will be different. I will believe will be different. There would not be a demonstration, multi-day demonstrations that locked up the country. So I think the formation of the movement, the formation of the demonstration is already different. There is no centerpiece, there is no mastermind there. So it's basically people who are disappointed with the regime organize themselves online. So the beginning of the demonstration is different. So I think the end will also be different. There will not be a Bangkok shutdown that lead to dead end, that invites military intervention or invite military crackdown. I think people are smarter than that now. Secondly, we have been told for the last 5 years that street demonstration will lead to the chaos, you know. In order to restore order in Thailand, we should restrict this right. We disagree, and we have to fight back this discourse. We have to fight back against this myth. They wanted to believe, and when I said they, I mean the junta, they wanted the people to believe that street protest would bring disorder. But we said street protest. We said demonstration in public spaces are the basic right. You know, people need space, and when other spaces are exhausted, you know, you have to find some way to express your opinions. So I think we have to fight not only in physical space, but we have to also fight in this rhetorical space as well.
Thank you very much. Can I have the next question, please?
Jirapon Sayasan, former journalist, but vivid democracy supporter. Hopefully you will make it next year. But what is your plan B if your party is dissolved? And also, you think the Thais is ready to fight for their democracy? And of course, I mean, my family has been in politics for 30 years, and we have, repeated coups. My father was the minister when General Chachai was, has a coup against him by Kunapirat's dad, and now, with Kunapirat, again. So it's a vicious cycle. And what's your thoughts on the accusation by the establishment that you're planning to stir up mobs, and also you think there are going to be organic fight for democracy in terms of people really depressed about the economic and also the distribution of wealth. I think which is long overdue for Thailand's problem.
Well, I don't know. I tell you again, very honest, very sincere. I don't know if the Thai people will stand up or not. I don't know. I tell you what I do know. There's too many people online and offline approaching me. When are you start to mobilize? When are you going to start the fight? Many people were asking me that, some even tease, on the online world that they need tear gas. It's time for tear gas. Their body needs tear gas. People approach me, and I'm basically the one who said, hold on. I'm the one who's saying, hold on. All roads, all options are not exhausted yet. Let us try it peacefully. Let us try to bring a democratic Thailand back peacefully through the parliamentary system. Let us try. So I'm actually the one who's, telling them, hold on. So I really don't know. But this time it's organic. What I can tell you is organic. So let's see. The second, you talk about the various coup d'etats that has happened in the past 87 years. Let me take you back in the Black May 1992. During the Black May 1992, many people died fighting for democracy against the military junta back then. By the way, the one who led the coup d'etat back then in 1992 was the father of Kunapriyak Kumsompong, who is the army general today. So his father staged a coup d'etat during my father's time, and maybe he will stage another coup d'etat in my time. So, but anyway, what happened in 1992 after the Black May was that there was kind of a consensus, an agreement in the society what is to be done. First, we need a free media. So we see the beginning of the ITV, the independent television we called it, which is now the TPBS. The Thai PBS was born because of the Black May 1992. We see there was an agreement that we need strong political parties. We need strong executive branch. There was an agreement that people should have more power. There was an agreement that the government information must be open for everyone. There must be an agreement that there's an agreement that there needs a reform of the military. So these are some kind of big issues, big agendas that was the result of the Black May. And these agendas were in the Constitution of the 1997. We as individual, as a citizen, can ask any government agencies to release their information. For the first time in history, we have the right to access to government information. TPBS, the Thailand equivalent to BBC, was established because of this. There was an disagreement. Also, the empowerment of the people leads to an article in the 1997 Constitution that allows the people, 10,000 people, to tender a bill to the parliament directly by passing their MPs. So there were these agendas, there were this consensus of what is to be done, how to go from here after the blackmail. But one thing that has been forgotten is the reform of military. There was an agenda. This was an agenda in 1992, but it has never been enacted. It has never been conducted. So this time, if opportunity arises, what I propose is 3 Ds: democratization, demilitarization, and decentralization. These are very important to the sustainability of Thai democracy in the future. You need to do these 3 Ds. Democratization, we need a new constitution that all people of all sides accept and could work together under this constitution. Second, you need to demilitarize. Military must be under elected government. Military must be under civilian rule. And third, you need to decentralize. Power has been vested for too much and for too long in Bangkok. It's time to give away powers to all the provinces across the country, from north to south, from east to west, so that people can design and decide their own future. This has to be done in order to bring about the sustainability of our democracy.
Thank you very much. I can take one more question, I think. Please.
Yusuf Aboud, I'm a stock analyst. Part of one of your party policy is to fight oligopolies.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please let us know a little bit more details and what you're planning to do on that front?
Okay.
Especially that oligopolies are the source of inequality in this country, and the one you're fighting. So I agree with Jonathan. Instead of fighting the military, why you don't go and target these oligopolies? And I'm not talking about the PTT or AOT group, but the private oligopolies. Thank you.
This year, we sent 3 bills to the parliament. The first bill was the elimination of the NCPO orders, 27 NCPO orders that suppress the freedom of speech, that wield the limitation of the people to express their opinions. The second bill was the end of conscription bill, the end of conscription, and the third bill is the labor protection. The first quarter of next year, the first quarter of 2020, you will see another bill that we believe very important, is the liberalization of the liquor industry. We will submit this draft bill to the House first quarter next year, and we will again campaign for it. We don't know if it's gonna pass, but we think it's very symbolic. We think it's very important. Talking about oligopoly in Thailand, let me make clear about our ideas. I think big capitals, big corporations are still important to the development of the economy. You cannot develop an economy without big corporations. You need them. But the problem about big corporations in Thailand is that They are regressive. Instead of competing with the world, instead of bringing the value added from the world market back to the people, to the supply chain in this country, they accumulate their capitals, accumulate their wealth by limiting the opportunities of the small and medium enterprises. And I think that is wrong. The function of big capital is to lead the supply chain and compete with the world. You need to innovate. You need to be more productive in order to compete with the world. And I think that is the function of big corporations. Together with the supply chain, middle enterprises, small enterprises, innovate and capture the value from the world market back to the country, not to replace the mid-size and small-size enterprises. That's what we want to change. And first, we want to do it in the liquor industry. You will see this bill in the parliament soon. Once this bill is tabled to the parliament, I hope that I get your support.
You want to ask a question? I'll allow one more question. We've just got a couple of minutes.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Colonel Achab of Caring Society, also a life member here. Would you agree that politicians should solve problem, not come in and make more problem? So the situation now, how can you make it so less hypocrisy? There's some hypocrisy here that accuse other people of something and then themselves doing it. How can you clean up and make politics like that? Come in and solve problem, not create more problem. Thank you.
Well, I am not an expert. I'm not an expert in water management. I'm not an expert in transportation. I'm not an expert in education. So I cannot solve every problems we have in this country. I look at my role as a chain breaker. I would like to break the chains that preventing us from achieving further. I want to break the chain that's stopping us from being a better country. I think that's my role. I don't see the roles of myself as solving education problems in Thailand. I don't want to, solve the waste management problems. I don't want to, I don't have the knowledge enough to do all this. And I think that's people capable of solving all these problems than me available across the country. So I don't see my role as problem solver. I see my role as chain breaker, to break the chain that preventing us from achieving further.
With that, can we all give Kun Thanathorn a warm round of applause, please? Can I remind you all, the bar is open. We have a superb selection of craft beers. Make yourselves full use of it.